All right, it's 3:08. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We'll begin with the roll call of the commission members. After I call your name, just reply here, President, and you can hear and see me. Commissioner Hughes.
Present, I can hear and see you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ponce.
I can see and hear you.
Excellent. And Commissioner Osmond. Commissioner Osmond. We'll come back to her. I believe that is everyone on the permit review committee. Okay. Last year, Governor Pritzker signed Public Act 101-0640, making certain amendments to the Open Meetings Act so that we, along with other boards and commissions, can continue to host virtual meetings during this COVID-19 public health emergency, provided that certain conditions are met. One of these conditions is that Chairman Wong of the Commission of Chicago Landmarks can determine that an in-person meeting of the Commission of Chicago Landmarks and its permit review committee are not practical or prudent. I want to make sure our virtual meetings all meet all the conditions of the Open Meetings Act as amended. Therefore, Chairman Wong has made a determination pursuant to Section 7E2 of the Open Meetings Act that an in-person meeting of the Commission of Chicago Landmark and its permit review committee is not practical or prudent. Similarly, he also determined pursuant to Section 7E5 that because of the disaster as declared by the governor, it is infeasible for at least one member of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks or its chief administrative officer or its chief legal officer to be physically present at the meeting place for either meeting inasmuch as there is no physical meeting place. Pursuant to resolution adopted by the Commission on Chicago Landmarks on June 4, 2020, regarding the chairman's emergency rulemaking powers, Chairman Wong issued emergency rules governing the conduct of remote public commission meetings and provisions for remote public participation effective January 19, 2021. These rules were posted on the commission's website. In line with these emergency rules, today's regular commission meeting is a virtual meeting being simulcast to the general public via live streaming. Commission meetings have been held virtually since May of last year. Meetings are structured to minimize the chances for technical difficulties. Meetings of the general public have been encouraged, members of the general public have been encouraged to submit written statements in advance of the meeting, and these have been posted to the commission's website and are available for public view during the virtual meeting at www.chicago.gov/ccl. Members of the public desiring to speak at today's meeting were required to register before the meeting and verbal statements by the public for all agenda items will take place at the beginning of the meeting. Applicants and their representatives, as well as aldermen, were asked to contact staff if they desire to speak, and they will be able to do so after staff presentation on a specific project. No one has signed up to speak for the permit review committee meeting, so we will now go through the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, our regular meeting, November 4th, 2021. Commissioners, as a reminder, when you wish to speak or make a motion, second a motion, press the raise hand function on the panel's window on the right side of your screen, and I will call upon you. I'd like to request a motion to approve the minutes of the November 4th, 2021 meeting. Do we have any motions?
So moved, Commissioner Hughes.
Commissioner Hughes has moved, and let the record show Commissioner Osmond is here. Do we have a second?
Seconded by Commissioner Osmond.
Seconded by Commissioner Osmond and Commissioner Ponce?
Yes.
Great, thank you. We let the record show that this motion carries unanimously. No one's opposed. Our first project, 1155 West Fulton Market, is in the 27th Ward, in Alderman Burnett Jr. In the Fulton Randolph Market District. It's the proposed new 2 foot 10 by 22 foot 7 illuminated sign mounted on a raceway located on the eastern parapet, approximately 47 foot 9 inches above grade. And I'd like to call on Emily Barton for the presentation.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So in May 2019, the Commission approved.
Emily, there's something wrong with your microphone. It's like you're underwater or something.
I'm not. Is that any better?
No, it's the same. You want to unplug it and plug it back in maybe, or? No, we still can't hear you.
No.
There we go.
Okay, now.
No, so this means is that maybe something is wrong with your device, your computer. Because even when you switched, we still cannot hear you.
Yeah.
Do you want to leave the meeting and join back in again? Sometimes that helps.
Sure. We can or I can do it on this computer too, whatever. I'll look that up.
Yeah, we're not able to understand you at all.
Should we try to move on to item 2 and come back? Where's? Yeah, let's try that.
Commissioner Jakovich, I have to leave at 4:05 for a funeral, so I would appreciate us moving along.
Okay. Let's move on to item number 2.
Otherwise, Kimberly Clark's here. Does that matter?
What was that?
I was just wondering if I can represent Kimberly Clark for that. Is it, or do you need Emily on?
I believe we need Emily to make the presentation.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
we'll come back. Let's go on to move on for the time being to item number 2, if that works. All right. Item number 2 is 1407 North Hoyne in the First Ward, La Spada. Wicker Park District is the proposed exterior-interior rehabilitation of the existing home and coach house, including modification of the existing one-story north side garage to increase its setback from Hoyne and construction of the new two-story additions above. Construction of a new one-story glass addition to connect the main house to the historic coach house, and the construction of a partially below-grade accessory pool structure in the south and rear yards. And let's call on Larry for the presentation. Larry Shore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 3-story John H. Rapp House and Coach House were constructed in 1879 in the Second Empire style with Italian details. Previously, the Permit Review Committee did approve an exterior restoration and expansion of the property, and that included replacement of the non-historic garage, a new 3-story staircase enclosure, and a rear addition. At the last PRC meeting, actually in October, the committee reviewed a proposal for construction of new 2-story additions above the existing 1-story north side garage, construction of a new 1-story glass addition to connect the main house to the historic coach house, and construction of partially below grade pool in the south and rear yards. These were approved, but with the following conditions. One is that the plans would be revised to eliminate the proposed 2-story addition on the northwest corner of the existing stair enclosure, and 2, that the project would require zoning variations or adjustments, and that the commission take no position regarding any of those requested adjustments. The applicants have provided some renderings showing what the design previously approved by the commission would look like, and it basically eliminates that 2-story addition on that west part of the north facade there. So the applicant has now revised their proposal and has returned with that revised proposal for consideration. The changes include an additional setback of the proposed addition on the northwest corner. That setback has been increased 3 feet from 7.5 feet to 10.5 feet from the Hayne facade of the main house. The existing one-story garage, which was previously approved, is also set back an additional 3 feet from Hayne facade, pushing that existing non-historic addition back further from the front does minimize its visibility and impact on a primary elevation. And this graphic here uses some dotted shapes to indicate how the proposal has changed. The design of the proposed addition incorporates a vertical glass reveal between the north elevation of the historic home and the new addition, providing a clear separation and making that addition visually thinner. Incorporation of the glass reveal, simplified detailing of the masonry cladding, revised window proportions, along with the increased setback, result in an addition that is further differentiated and subordinated to the historic building. The existing stair enclosure, which was previously approved back in 2008, is proposed to be reduced in height to match the height of the proposed additions and is to be reclad in metal and glass. These design changes unify the various existing non-historic additions with the new additions into a cohesive form, while the glass wall of the stair tower breaks up the addition's massing. Here are some renderings that the applicant has provided. And on the left, you have the massing of the previously proposed addition. And on the right, you have the revised rendering showing that narrow glass reveal and the additional setback and some of the design changes to that north addition. And this is the same thing from a slightly different angle further to the north. Again, you can see the change in mass and design and the incorporation of that glass reveal. So for this revised submittal, we are recommending approval with the following conditions. Number one, based on the increased setback of the existing garage and the proposed northwest addition, the design changes, including the glass hyphen connection, reduced height of the existing stair enclosure, and recladding of its north elevation, and the importance of maintaining a significant separation between the main house and the historic coach house, staff recommends approval of the revised submittal as indicated on the previous exhibits. Two, that the permit plans will include dimensioned window, door, and curtain wall details, and they shall provide material samples for staff review and approval prior to order installation. And then that same condition related to not taking a position regarding any requested variances or adjustments. So that's really all I've got to present. I know that the applicants are on the call as well if you have questions for them. But if you have questions about my presentation, I'd be glad to take those now.
Thank you, Larry. First, do we have any, does the commission have any questions for Larry before we go to the applicant? Seeing none. Let's hear from the applicant. Can we please hear from the project architect, Andy Tanucci?
Hi, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Andy Tanucci, principal at Woodhouse Tanucci Architects. Just confirming you guys can hear us okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. We have some documents in that we don't need to show. I don't need to follow up Larry's presentation with another formal presentation that would just reiterate what Larry has said. We're here to answer any questions. And again, we've brought some other backup if that's necessary as questions arise, but otherwise, I know you've had a long meeting and don't need to reiterate what Larry has said.
Thank you, Mr. Tanucci. Do any commission members have any questions for Mr. Tanucci? Seeing none. If there is no further, do we have any? We kind of moved to the discussion portion. Is there any discussion portion for the commission members? Any points? Seeing none. I think I think they could move to make a motion for the
A
staff
motion to
recommend.
accept the staff recommendations.
What's that?
A motion to accept the staff recommendations.
We have a motion to accept the staff recommendations. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Osmond. Do we have, let's do a roll call. Commissioner Ponce.
Yes.
Commissioner Ponce is a yes, and I am a yes. The motion has passed unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 3. Or let's go back to item number 1. Are we good to go back to item number 1 at this point?
Okay, can I
Yes.
be heard?
Yes. Perfect. All right, 11:55 West Fulton. Emily, you're
Oh,
on.
man, I promise you, it was worth the wait. Okay. So in May 2019, the commission approved a proposal for rehabilitation of an existing 3-story building with new rooftop addition at 1155 West Fulton Market. In November of 2021, staff received a sign permit application for a new parapet sign. Because this proposed sign is greater than 24 feet above grade, City Council approval is required, therefore triggering permit review committee review. So the applicant is proposing to install an internally lit illuminated letter sign reading Kimberly Clark on the eastern parapet of the building facing May Street, as I said, approximately 50 feet above grade. The sign is proposed to be 2 foot 10 inches tall and 22 foot 7 inches in length. The letters are approximately 3 inches thick and are proposed to be located on a raceway so as to minimize masonry penetrations. The letters will be faced with white acrylic with aluminum backing. So the commission has previously approved parapet signs within the district, and this sign is similarly located facing a side street rather than the primary view corridors along Fulton Market and Randolph. Although the district contains several examples of historic identifying signage located in parapets, these are areas where new signage is discouraged to avoid design elements which will overshadow the architectural qualities of the building. However, because Kimberly Clark is the primary tenant in the building and the sign's location on a secondary street in the district, staff recommends approval of the proposed sign with the conditions that the raceway be painted to match the masonry behind. All attachments should be located within mortar joints and no conduit should be visible. Staff further recommends that the illumination should be dimmable in order to adjust the lighting levels as required by code. So as I said, we recommend approval. I believe representatives from Kimberly Clark and the sign company are here if you have questions for them or me.
Thank you, Emily. Does the commission have any questions for Emily before hearing from the applicant? Seeing none, let's hear from the applicant. Can we please hear from ownership representative Sue Ronavara?
Ronavera, yes.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
Yes, our company is very excited to be moving to Chicago. I don't really have anything additional to add to what Emily said. I think she said it well.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Ronavara from the commission? There are no questions. We'll move to discussion. Any discussion points from commission members? Seeing none, I'd like to request a motion to approve the staff recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Commissioner Ponce has made a motion. Do we have a second?
Seconded, Hughes.
Seconded by Commissioner Hughes, and we'll do the roll call. Commissioner Osmond?
Yes.
Commissioner Osmond is yes, and I am a yes. The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, and welcome to Chicago.
Woohoo! Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Moving to item number 3, 2044 West Thomas in the 2nd Ward, Alderman Hopkins. It's a violation. The proposed painting of front masonry facade, and we'll talk to, let's hear from Larry Shores for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On October 27th, historic preservation staff received an email from the community notifying us that the building at 2044 had been painted white. Staff confirmed that a permit had been issued for interior and exterior renovations, but painting of the historic masonry was not permitted. Subsequently, an inspector with the Department of Buildings issued a stop work order for the property. The Department of Buildings later modified this order to apply to exterior work only. Based on information received from the owners, the property was purchased in August of 2020. At that time, the face brick had already been stained from the original light tan to a dark brown color, and you see that in the center image. According to the previous owner, this is an opaque mineral stain. At the time, this work did not come to the attention of historic preservation staff. This may have been done to address non-matching brick repairs to the parapet, and you see the original color on the image to the left. The new owners then made their own repairs to the parapet. Subsequently, they investigated restaining the brick to a more natural color and hired the firm Nawcaw, which specializes in architectural coatings, to assess the brick. At that time, Nawcaw realized that the brick already had been stained and could not be stained again. They recommended the owner speak to another firm, Restore Works, to investigate removal of that stain. Restore Works performed 2 test patches and found that the stain could not be removed due to the softness of the bricks. They recommended against the use of a chemical stripper, since they believed such a product could further damage the brick. Instead, they recommended an exterior paint to achieve a uniform finish. The owners then consulted with an agent of the paint manufacturer, Sherwin-Williams, who suggested Loxon XP waterproofing coating, which is a vapor permeable elastomeric paint. This was then used to paint the brick and mortar joints white. The existing limestone foundation, sills, lintels, and decorative stone insets were not painted. According to the City of Chicago Building Code, a permit is required for any work that affects the exterior or designated interior elements of a Chicago landmark. The Commission's guideline for painting masonry states that masonry buildings should not be painted. Aside from the fact that historically they were rarely painted, painting a masonry building creates a continuing maintenance problem. Painting seals in an otherwise porous material, trapping moisture in the masonry, and once painted, periodic repainting is required. When left unpainted, the moisture evaporates naturally from the surface of the brick and through soft mortar joints. However, when painted, particularly with a latex or acrylic paint, moisture can be trapped inside the wall. When this happens, the freeze-thaw cycles can cause irreversible damage to the brick as expanding ice microscopically breaks down the masonry. Painted brick may begin to spall and brick replacement may become necessary. Attached in your packet for reference was an excerpt from the National Park Service Preservation Brief number 1, which relates to assessing cleaning and water repellent treatments for historic masonry buildings, and it outlines various concerns with painting masonry. Over the years, the Permit Review Committee has approved the use of architectural coatings in specific instances for historic terracotta and limestone. In some cases, the material had been previously painted or had deteriorated and required painting in order to regain a consistent appearance. Typically, these proposals are referred to the PRC, and staff confirms that the proposed products are suitably vapor permeable, that the coating matches the color and reflectivity of the historic material, and that the product is only used in areas where it is required. To date, paint has not been approved for historic brick. While the staff does not have direct knowledge of the condition of the original brick of the facade, the application of both stains and paints have the potential to clog the pores of the brick and mortar. The use of a waterproof coating may exaggerate this damage, particularly when the mortar joints are also painted. Now, Loxon XP has a vapor permeance of about 18 perms, which is sufficient for the product to be considered vapor permeable, meaning that a certain amount of moisture can both enter and exit the substrate. The vapor permeable coating previously approved by the PRC, which is the Edison Aquafane coating, results in a film 2 to 3 mils thick per coat, while the Loxon XP may be 13 to 16 mils, which will result in a thicker application. The underlying brown mineral stain is intended to be 100% breathable, but was not intended to be used in combination with the film forming paint. Making the use of the paint even more questionable is the choice of a white color, which has no relationship to the historic color of this contributing building or the typically earth tone masonry of that district. So we are making a couple of fairly complicated recommendations. Recommendation number 1 is that the owner shall engage a qualified masonry restoration firm to investigate removal of the white paint from the front facade. The consultant shall submit paint removal specifications to historic preservation staff, prepare test sample areas on the facade, and submit written analysis regarding the results of paint removal test samples and recommendations regarding paint removal from the entire facade. Historic preservation staff shall then be notified to make a site visit when paint removal test areas are completed for review and decision regarding the next steps. Number 2, should historic preservation staff, in consultation with the owner's consultant, determine that the condition of the underlying brick allows for adequate paint removal, the white paint shall be removed from the entire facade pursuant to a permit. Once the paint is removed and the existing previously stained brick is exposed, any further treatment or repair, if necessary, shall be determined in consultation with historic preservation staff. And finally, 3, should historic preservation staff, in consultation with the owner's consultant, determine that the condition of the underlying brick prevents adequate removal of the paint without damaging the brick, an additional coat of vapor permeable paint shall be applied to match the original color as closely as possible, subject to historic preservation staff review and approval of the product specifications and the application methodology and pursuant to a permit. So that's a mouthful, but if you have questions, I will take those now. I believe that the owners are also on the call, and hopefully some of their contractors and consultants. I do want to say that we've seen a number of these projects, and we are trying to address them adequately and completely, and this is maybe the first of several that you may see.
Thanks, Larry. Do we have any questions for Larry before we hear from the applicant? Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you. Larry, is my understanding correct in that a lot of these moves are made, a lot of these alterations to the facade were made over time without the approval or knowledge of the staff?
That's right. That's right. So we, obviously we can't get out there. So we depend on reports from the community, and that's how we became aware of this one.
Okay, great, thank you. And I know that you said they consulted with Sherwin-Williams, and there was some testing done in the past. Was that adequate, or is there adequate documentation of that testing that was done that led to the painting of the facade?
So just today, the owners did send me some additional detail about their attempts to remove the stain, and a photograph of the attempt to do that, and some products that they utilized, and sort of a conclusion that removing the stain was not a viable option. I don't believe there's been any attempt to remove the paint, but of course there's been a stop work order on the exterior work, so they may not have moved forward with any of those attempts. So yeah, that's as much as we know, and I do know the products that they used to attempt to remove the stain. It may not have been clear initially that it was in fact a stain, because stains have a different chemistry and a different type of removal necessary, and it can be quite difficult.
Thank you for clarification.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Any other questions for Larry? There being none, can we please hear from the applicant, the property owner?
Yes, hello, can you hear me okay? This is Anisha Bajaj and my husband, Kirk Gilson. We are the owners of Thomas Street, and so there are just a few things that I'd love to be able to clarify. So, as Larry said, when we purchased the home, unfortunately, we were kind of dealt a bit of a bad hand with the fact that it was already stained. And because we actually had to go back and do some necessary brick and masonry repairs in 2021, I'm not sure if you could see on the, Larry, would you be able to pull up our presentation? Because I'm not sure if you had the same photo that we did. Thank you.
Did you, I don't think I received a presentation from
I guess
you.
it would have been from my husband, Kirk.
When would that have been received?
Tuesday.
That's fine if he wants to pull up
That's
his
okay.
picture.
If you want to pull back your photo up, we might be able to actually see what I'm trying to get at. You can kind of see that even when the facade was coated with that the brown paint, that I think that they were trying to hide the fact that the top 8 layers of brick were different, and we didn't realize at the time that the top 8 bricks had been replaced and were notably inconsistent. So we were hopeful when we actually contracted Restore Works, who works on the Civic Opera, the Wrigley Building, etc., that we would be able to restore the brick back to its original condition. So unfortunately, when Restore Works determined that it would take at least 2 of their chemical applications and strippers to remove the brown paint, they were really concerned that going further than that might damage the soft brick. And their patch test with the 2 chemical applications did not remove the brown paint clearly, as the bricks are pitted. So even, we even talked to them about the poultice, a mortar, a poultice for mortar specifically, and Restore Works advised us to not really attempt any further chemical removal because the bricks were so pitted. They have provided a letter and attested to this as well, but they did say that any additional removal would once again cause damage. They really advised us to not do that, which is why when we did reach out to NACA after assessing the brick themselves, they advised us to paint. And so at the time, they advised us to consult someone on a breathable masonry coating, which is why we actually reached out to the experts at Sherwin-Williams to select this paint color. Given that our home that didn't really share similar characteristics with other homes in our neighborhood, and the brown brick color also too wasn't consistent with the other homes in the neighborhood, we decided to paint the home white to brighten the appearance of the home. We were also fearful that painting a color that mimicked a natural brick color, where we also had to paint the mortar, wouldn't really meet our desired results, as the paint is flat and doesn't have the tone variation that brick would. And because of the previous tuck pointing and the other repairs, the mortar also didn't match when we bought the home. So we tried to find a classic color for painted brick that would allow the original limestone details of the home to stand out. I can say we did not do this maliciously. We were simply trying to make the best of our limited options. Since we had bought the home after the brown stain had already been applied and the exterior was in rough shape. We certainly didn't take this lightly, and even had other colors mocked up, and white seemed to be the most classic, and we thought at the time the least offensive. So we understand that the Ukrainian Village Neighborhood Association and the PRC staff recommendation implies that the white facade is not in keeping with the historic character of the neighborhood, but it's our opinion that the original yellowish mismatched brick that currently exists and the painted brown brick and the features of our home in general weren't really consistent or relatable to the other homes even on our street. Additionally, we've noted several landmarked homes within a 1-block radius of our home, which have color schemes less in keeping with the neighborhood. And as we've already gone down the path to remove this brown coating, and that was unsuccessful per Restore Works, repeating this process too with the white coating that's now on there, we're concerned isn't going to yield a successful result when 2 additional layers now have to be removed. We have some images of some of the homes, notably the home across the street from ours that is painted blue and is also landmarked as an example. So in closing, we apologize for violating our permit. We've truly only strived to restore this project in the correct way. We feel that having the issue of already coated brick and then having painted that brick white is a little subjective and kind of being unevenly applied to our home, while other homes in the neighborhood, namely even the home across the street, has not been, forced to make similar modifications. Our strong preference, honestly, is to keep the property as is rather than risk damaging the brick, as we've already attempted to remove the dark brown paint, or putting unnecessary layers of paint on top of the existing work. We are longtime residents of Westtown. We've lived in the neighborhood for 10 years. We absolutely love the unique character of its home. We've spent so much money trying to get this project done. We would appreciate any grace or leeway the committee can provide, as we're over budget. We've incurred over 6 figures of carrying costs since we purchased the home in August of 2020. And we spent a great deal of time and money and thought to restoring this home into what you see in this photo. We hope we've shown that we did our best to consult experts on the best course of action, and that none of the steps that we took or the steps we've taken were done maliciously or thoughtlessly.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Bajaj. I had a question. Well, Commissioner Hughes, you can go first.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Larry, I'm looking through Google right now on the streets. And I do see the blue house that they're referencing. Did that property go through any sort of process, or are we gonna see them next month as well?
We may very well see them. Now that property was actually previously painted even before the district was designated. They then repainted it a different color. We knew nothing about that either. And there, like I said, there are a number of these projects where this has happened. This is apparently a very, very popular thing. So we are just trying to deal with it consistently, and try and make some improvements. And I mean, even in my presentation, I mentioned that there are architectural coatings that can be approved by the commission on staff recommendation in certain cases. And although I would never accuse the owner of circumventing the process, but these are issues that the commission should be involved with, regardless of what the final decision is.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on that. Just Larry, I guess if I, the right process would have been to include the recoloration of the brick in the permit, right? And commission would have had an opportunity to review that. Is that correct? Right. Had that conversation happened prior to work occurring, I think we could have avoided a lot of this. But we're sort of in an uncomfortable situation now. All right, thank you. Commissioner Hughes, I see you're back.
Yeah, sorry. I have a few questions. This property that's adjacent to it, the bricks at the top of it seem to be a different color as well. Is there any relation between the two properties, Larry? Or what, is that a coincidence?
It's probably a coincidence. It's very common. A lot of these buildings had cornices removed for safety, or they just didn't want to repair them, or so it's extremely common to have a different color brick at that parapet area. And in fact, we use that to help us determine the height and location of historic cornices for people in districts which want to restore those.
And the property looks cream on a lot of the photos. Is it in fact white?
I don't think it's pure white. I think the owners can speak to that better than I can. It is more of a cream, I think.
It is. It definitely is more of a creamy white. We didn't want something to assault people's eyes, especially when the sun hit it. So we did take that into account when picking, when choosing a color.
And I guess I have one more question. Sorry, I have a lot of questions. For the owner, was there a reason that you guys didn't include kind of the painting of the exterior in the application process?
I'm embarrassed to say we were completely ignorant of it. We've never taken on a project like this before. We had no idea that painting was was part of this. We've never taken on a landmark property before. So we genuinely had no idea. I mean, had we known that we needed to include the commission, I think we've been very forthcoming and very upfront about the process that we've gone through. We would have absolutely done that. We just feel like we were kind of dealt a bad hand from the start with, with the brown coating already being applied. So I promise we did not intentionally try to bypass anything.
Yeah, I think that's my comment to that is I think that might be a larger issue, especially Larry, if you're saying we're having this happen, kind of at a larger scale around the city. Maybe when people are purchasing these homes, they need to know, ahead of time before they sign the dotted line that we will be intricately involved in their process if they decide to do any exterior alterations.
Now, when people do purchase buildings in historic districts, the landmark designation is included in the, it's recorded to the property, but having that recorded to the property doesn't really anticipate all the questions someone might have about what that means.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably a one-sheeter that's a disclosure, that's a part of the 50 million disclosures we get when we purchase a home. But those are my thoughts. And I understand that, this owner is, they didn't know about the process, and I'm not terribly offended by the color that they chose. But I'll be quiet now and let others say.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that. I think it's not just about the color, it's about painting brick and issues that might come. And that needs to be thought about too, issues that come from painting brick, even if it's approved. I mean, if you talk to at most brick, experts, they're going to say never paint brick. So I think that's the concern. Also, among some other concerns. But any other questions? Discussion?
And if we could real fast, we did seek NACA's expertise in determining that since we could not stain the brick and paint, and they did mention that in this scenario it was okay to paint the brick. So that's the guidance that we were following. Again, our ignorance not being the cause that we didn't come to this group first, but that's kind of what led us down that path.
I appreciate that. Does the commission have any other questions, points of discussion? There being none, I'd like to request a motion to adopt the staff recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Commissioner Ponce has made a motion. Do we have a second? Okay. I will vote yes. What do we do now? It's a question for, we just went through this on the other one. I guess to let the record show that Commissioner Ponce has made a motion. I second that motion. So can we vote? Let's do a roll call. Commissioner Hughes.
I'm gonna vote no on this one.
Commissioner Hughes is a no. Commissioner Osmond.
No.
No. So we have a split commission, and I don't know what that means. I think we don't. If we have a split commission, then what happens? There's Deanna.
So Commissioner, you need 3 affirmative votes to pass a motion. So in this case, the motion that was put on the table did not pass, so we do not have a decision. I don't know if you wish to modify the motion to reach a consensus in some way so that you can have, a decision, affirmative decision of 3.
We can, thank you for that. We could try that. Commissioner Hughes, do you have any recommendations on a modified, or Commissioner Osmond, or
Let me
Commissioner
read.
Osmond. So what we're asking for is for someone to, qualified mason to, you know, investigate the removal of the facade, the paint, and perform an analysis. Should I just read this instead of trying to do that?
It sounds like they've done a lot of this work, though.
Already, yeah, that's my issue.
It seems like we're repeating work that's being done. So I wonder what we'd achieve by that.
I think if my motion is, you know, understanding that they have done their due diligence and they are providing the staff with all of the paperwork of their exploration of the facade, and that this was the best course of action for them. I mean, because it was already stained, it was already, they had experts come in and look at that. Provided they give all of the proper documentation of those findings, that we accept the facade as is. That's my motion.
Okay. Now, just to clarify, Larry, we did receive like letters and from experts saying that this is a breathable paint.
That's right. So they gave us the product specifications, and we were able to download some of the other ones. So this is technically a breathable coating. It's substantially thicker than what the commission has previously approved for other landmark projects. But we do have all that information, and we do have some statements from the person at Restore Works that did some of their investigation. If the commission decides that this is acceptable, you know, perhaps the recommendation is that it's retroactively approved based on the information submitted. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Okay. So Commissioner Hughes has made a motion to modify the staff recommendation to accept the paint as with the backup information that was provided to the commission. Do we have, is that correct, Commissioner Hughes? Yes. Do we have a second for that?
I second it, Commissioner Osmond.
Commissioner Ponce? Thank you, Commissioner Osmond.
Yes, that works for me.
Okay. All right. And I'm going to vote yes for that as well. So with that, we have a revised motion that has been accepted, and that motion carries unanimously.
I just want to thank you. I had a question for Larry or Deanna. Deanna, I mean, I know that we passed that decision, but that does mean that other properties that are doing things outside that to their landmark properties will still, like we can still require them to go through the exploration process and retrofit their properties back if they haven't done their due diligence, right?
So Commissioner, anytime there is a violation, for example, exceeding the scope of permit, and we need to address it through a new permit, we would bring it to you for review. And we would present whatever facts we have at that point, you know, for you to make a decision based on those.
Great. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Hughes? All right. Thank you, Deanna. And that concludes that item. Let's move on to item number 4, 1524 North Point. In the second ward, Alderman Hopkins, another violation, proposed recladding of the front and side south facades with new face brick repairs to the existing porch and new windows on the north facade. I'd like to call on Joyce Ramos for the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject property is a raised two-story red brick building designed in the Second Empire style. It features a mansard roof with dormers, Joliet limestone lintels, and an East Lake porch with elaborate timber work. In September 2020, a permit was issued for selective stone, lintel, and sill replacement, tuck pointing, a new stone porch and stairs, new windows, a rear addition and garage, as well as an interior renovation. Brick removal and replacement was not approved with this permit. In November 2021, a stop work order was issued for the removal of historic face brick and the installation of new face brick, which exceeded the scope of work of the approved permit. According to the architect, in August 2021, the mason began to replace the brick on the side elevation. In September, the general contractor notified the architect of issues with the existing backup brick. As work commenced to replace the top 3 feet of non-historic brick, it was discovered that the backup brick was deteriorated. The mason continued to remove the face brick on the second floor to expose further deteriorated areas, which became extensive. The mason was instructed to continue removing the face brick to access the damaged backup brick for repair. A structural engineer was retained to analyze the condition of the brick, who confirmed that the backup brick required repair. The general contractor continued work and installed the new face brick in the place of the salvage brick. All work and analysis occurred without notification to the Department of Buildings or the Historic Preservation Division. In September 2021, Historic Preservation staff was alerted by the community that historic brick was removed and new brick was being installed. A 311 service request was filed. Historic Preservation staff reached out to the architect, who then notified the general contractor to halt the brickwork and also plan to submit revised permit drawings that will address the brickwork. On October 28th, the architect submitted a permit to reclad the front elevation and a portion of the side elevation with new face brick. Subsequently, a stop work order was issued on the property. The front facade had historic brick on the lower portion, and the non-historic brick that was installed was located on the second floor, above the second floor windows, which is highlighted in yellow in the photo on the left. According to the architect, the historic face brick was not salvaged due to the considerable number of chips and spalls, stains, and having to remove the mortar from each unit. Additionally, the side surfaces of the brick were damaged due to grinding by a previous tuck pointer. Since Historic Preservation staff was not notified that the historic base brick was being removed, and since none of the brick was salvaged, staff did not have the opportunity to verify the condition of the brick to determine if it could have been salvaged for reinstallation. Currently, the new brick has been installed up to the first floor on the front and side elevations, as shown in yellow in the elevation drawings. The proposed scope of work for the new permit is to completely install new brick on the front elevation and on the portion of the side elevation. Staff had the opportunity to review the sample brick by Glengarry number 56DD when the architect contacted staff in April of 2021 for a future project to replace the non-historic brick. The new brick is a good match, as it matches the historic in color and in size, which is a true 8-inch wide by 2¼ high brick with 1/4-inch mortar joints. Since the historic brick, which was removed without a permit and was not salvaged for reinstallation, the recladding of the front, the entire front facade, and the 10-foot return on the south elevation with the brick by Glengarry number 56DD, matching the historic brick in size, color, texture, brick coursing, and pattern, is approved to prevent further damage to the historic structure. In addition to the submitted dimensioned elevation drawings that indicate the size and locations of masonry openings and the limestone lintels and sills, staff recommends that the architect submit the following drawings in the permit application. Elevations that indicate the locations of the backup brick repair, enlarged details that show how the backup brick will be repaired, and enlarged details showing the installation of the new face brick to include ties, flashing, etc., in order to prevent further damage to the new facade. Also in this new permit, the wood front porch was removed during the brick removal, but is in storage and is proposed to be reinstalled. The new permit includes the replacement of 2 front non-historic square concrete columns with new wood columns. The replacements will match the profile found on the historic pilasters. However, the hand-carved details, such as the rope and artichoke leaves, is not proposed to be replicated. While the proposed replacement is an improvement for the existing non-historic concrete columns, staff recommends that the replacement column should match the historic pilasters and profile and details as closely as possible. So staff recommends approval for the new scope of work with the conditions mentioned during this presentation and also listed here on this slide. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions for me or for the architect and owner who are both here, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Any questions for Joyce before we hear from the architect? There being none.
Oh, yes, sir.
Let's hear from the architect, Timothy Levon.
So my name is Timothy Levon. I'm the partner and principal of Levon and Associates Architects. We wanted to just make note of the fact that we had initially, in our initial conversations with Landmarks when we were applying for the permit, indicated that we were going to have brick made that matched as closely as possible the existing brick for the replacement of what was obviously previously replaced brick on the upper 4 feet or so, and then the side returns. We worked very carefully to get as exact a replacement as we could in both texture, finish, and size. And we were required to order, because it was a custom brick, a rather significant number of them, which we had intended to use on the new garage, which will be built in the back. The intention was always to achieve the appropriate permits, and we were in the process as we started to get access to the brick behind the upper brick, which was to be replaced, realizing that we had a bigger issue on our hands. And so we were in the process of trying to determine exactly how much brick we thought we were going to have to replace. And we got a little over our skis, I think, in terms of trying to get that determination made before we actually got our proper permit application into Landmarks. So the intention was always to follow the rules, of course, but the speed with which the mason was working and the general contractor trying to get the building as secured as we could with impending weather probably got a little ahead of ourselves. So there was certainly never any intention of doing it right. And I think we've found a perfect match for this brick, but we got a little ahead of ourselves.
Okay, thank you for that additional perspective. Do any commission members have any questions for the applicant?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I'm excited to see that upon exploring the true damage behind the brick that you guys are going to replace and place its entirety, and just really finding that match. I saw the sample, it looks spot on, which is really hard to do. I mean, I know these bricks are custom size and color and stuff, so thank you guys for going the extra mile there and finding that match. And this porch, I'm so excited to see that you guys are bringing that back, because when she was presenting and she said it's been put away, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm so happy to hear that it's coming back. And I know that the staff said that they prefer the exact replicas of the detailing of the historic posts in the back. Can you explain why you guys are simplifying those more? And also, can you go to the slide that shows that? Yeah, this one. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, was there a question there? I missed.
Yes, sorry. I was saying, I think the staff mentioned they preferred, the actual detailing on these posts. And I think you guys are proposing a more simplified version. Is there a reason for that? Can you?
The only limitation now is trying to find someone who's capable of doing the hand carving. The the majority of the post can be turned on a lathe, but the spiral is all handwork. So if we can find someone who can replicate it, I think the intention is to do so. We just haven't identified that craftsman yet.
Excellent. That answer your question, Commissioner Hughes?
It does. And I mean, Joyce, I don't know if we know any people that do this, but
Yeah, you know what, staff isn't able to recommend like specific like craftsmen or contractors to do this work, but you know, I would recommend like Landmarks Illinois has a great resource actually on their website. It's the Illinois Restoration Resource Directory, which is like an online guide, which provides like information on like different like services, products, or experts that deal with restoration and maintenance for older structures. So I mean, that could be a source that can kind of widen the architect's search for people that can do this work.
Excellent. Thank you. I see Commissioner Osmond, and I know you're coming up on leaving here soon. So Commissioner Osmond? She left.
I have to run. Commissioner, and so should I put my vote in before? Do you have a quorum without me?
I think we have a quorum, but we can probably move to the motion. I think we're ready. Since there's no further questions, no further discussion, I'd like to request a motion to approve a staff recommendation. Do we have a motion?
so moved, Commissioner Hughes.
Commissioner Hughes, do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner Ponce.
I
Second
second
by-
it.
Seconded by Commissioner Ponce. Commissioner Osmond is a yes. And
I move.
excellent. And I am also a yes. So the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Osmond. All right. And that is our last item. So there's no further business. I'd like to request a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Commissioner Hughes.
Big movement there. Do we have a second?
Our last so moved 2021.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Ponce. And yes, so it's our last meeting. Let the record show that the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays and happy new year. See you next year, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, see you next year. Have a wonderful holiday, everyone.
Thank you. Yes.
Bye, have a great holiday.